Hi everyone, this is Mr. Barnett, and welcome to level 5 of the Data Analyst project, which is about correlation and regression. So there are 4 learning objectives in this level. You can take a look at those, and then I will just kind of walk you through what correlation and regression are about and what you'll be doing as part of this level. Let's go ahead and get started with that. So correlation and regression are tools we use to find relationships in data. So far in this course, or in this project, we've learned how to analyze data about a single variable. So if, for instance, I gave you the daily high temperatures over 2 weeks, yeah, you'd have this data. I know you could do a lot with it. You could come up with histograms, you could find summary statistics, you could make box and whisker plots, etc. But what if I asked you about relating this variable, finding how it is connected to something else? So what if I asked the question, how is the temperature in a day, the high temperature, related to the length of day? We know that temperature changes from day to day, and we also know that the length of a day changes as we go through the year. It's short in the winter and long in the summer. So how are these two things connected? Well, we need data here, and so here I have taken, for each of these days over 2 weeks, I've found the high temperature and I've found the daylight. And we can look at this and we can try to make some observations, but it's going to be kind of imprecise looking at it. And if we have a massive data set, like your World Bank indicator, which has 200 countries, it's much too big for us to see those relationships just by looking. So to find how two quantities or variables are connected, we need a tool that will help us do that. Well, here's the tool I have for you. It is called a scatter plot. So this is a new type of graph, and it allows us to find the correlation between two variables. Look at this word correlation. You should see in it co-relation. So a relationship between two variables. So in a scatter plot, on our x-axis, our horizontal axis, we have the variable which we think is driving the change, right? We tend to think that changing one variable causes or creates or drives change in another variable. So the variable that is driving the change is on the x-axis. And the variable whose change is driven is on the y or vertical axis. So what we think might be causing the change is on the x-axis, horizontal, and on the vertical or y-axis, we have the thing that the change is being caused. And then each point on the scatter plot represents a single observation from the data set. So let me show you the scatter plot that I have created from daily high temperature and length of day. You'll see here, I think personally that the daylight is what drives the high temperature, right? Because the daylight, the length of the day is kind of determined by something very far away. That's the sun. It can't really be changed that much, but the high temperature obviously is changed by a lot of things, the weather, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then each of these points represents a day. So on this point here, we had 685 minutes of daylight and a high temperature around 4. On this point, we had maybe 698 minutes of daylight and a high temperature around 7 degrees, right? Each of those 2-week days is plotted on this graph. Now, what relationship do you see? Well, I see something I'd call a positive correlation, right? As one variable, the daylight increases, so does the other, the high temperature. So I look and see as daylight goes up, right, temperature also rises. This is one type of correlation. One thing you're going to see and need to learn in this level is about other types of correlation, negative correlation and no correlation, and sometimes correlation that's nonlinear. So I'll leave those for you to discover as you work on this level. Now, we have a scatter plot. This is a basic tool, but of course in this course, we are always taking the basics and trying to make them a little more sophisticated, trying to obtain a little better understanding of what these graphs show. So to better understand the general trends that correlation shows, we can use a few new tools, okay? The first is called a linear regression line, also called a trend line or a line of best fit. And this is going to be an equation that describes the relationship a bit more precisely. Is going to take a general relationship and put numbers on it. And we also have something called the correlation coefficient. And this is a number in between -1 and 1, which indicates how strong is a correlation. And you'll see some rules of how we interpret the correlation coefficient. Now, I've gone ahead and done that in this graph. Same data, except now you'll see I have a line that goes through the points. And from this line, I can get an equation. The line 0.533x minus 363. And so I can interpret this to say I take some time of daylight as x, I put it into the equation, and I'll estimate a high temperature, very interesting equation, and then I have something called an r squared value. This is 0.948. If I take the square root of that, I get an r value, and that would tell me that this is a very strong positive correlation. These are complex calculations, so we're going to do them on a calculator or a spreadsheet. If you're curious in how they're done, you can certainly look that up. I'd encourage you to do so. But what I'm concerned about in this level is not so much your ability to do these calculations, which a computer or calculator can do very quickly, but instead your ability to interpret the results. And so you'll get a lot of practice with that in this level. So here are the things to do from here. First, you can build your skills using some Edpuzzle videos and practice assignments on Khan Academy. I highly recommend you practice on Khan Academy here because this just requires practice. Take notes on what you've learned, and you have a course companion to work with. Using the World Bank data which I've shared with you, plus new data, this is important, new data I'm giving you about life expectancy, I want you to create a scatter plot that links your chosen indicator with life expectancy. I want you to calculate the equation of the linear regression line and the correlation coefficient. You can do this very easily in Google Sheets, and I have a video explaining how. And then explain what your results show, and more importantly, why you think relationships exist. If something you see is related to life expectancy, say, why do you think it is? How is one indicator related to another? That's what's really important and interesting. Review your work with your teacher, and then complete a self-assessment survey. And so I hope that in this level, you are learning something new and interesting about how variables relate to each other. Good luck, and be sure to ask any questions. Thanks for watching.